I'll start asking. Superintendent Water, come back. Just 6 more. Can you repeat all of that one more time? How many pounds?
No, not that one, Sammy.
Yeah. Oh, I.
What if I text it to you?
Yeah.
Turn up. What do we do?
With a main map. Thank you.
You got it?
Yes.
Hey,
I'm sorry. I tried to email it to you, but I got stuck in the system because I only went from like.
oh boy. No, no, talked to a friend of mine the other day. With the Waterbury.
Oh, are you not signed out of your email?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Traveling with
When they were hunting the
Yeah, no, I was wondering.
September. Yeah, I'm trying to remember whether
a little weird.
on that month.
Is it Stafford?
I want to say it's
You don't pile how much that
Could be. Yeah. Yeah, we're not even.
Thank you.
Good a long time.
Yeah, boy. Well, I'm doing all right. How about you? You've been going since what?
These guys.
Yeah, so I was kind of talking to you.
I got, no, actually, well, I edited it. Joe Gary, I got something to it. That's what it was. A little while ago. So, it's clear. I edited it up. Clear water. It's flowing. Well, there's, I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there. Much, Sammy.
Did it go okay with them, or do we need to mention that's what this is? Yeah, Brett.
I know, right?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. We just wanted to give you an update from where we are from yesterday. As we had indicated to you yesterday, we had hoped last evening to turn the valve that we installed on Thomaston Avenue in front of the restaurant on last night, and to allow the water to start flowing down to the east end of Waterbury. We have been able to do that. Water starting at 8:30 last night. We began introducing water into that part of the system, and it's been working. Because the system has been empty for several days because of the cold temperatures, we are putting the water in a very controlled fashion at this point, because we want to make sure that we don't blow out the any lines that are that have been empty. So as we start, if we put all the pressure in all at once, we would run the risk of having other breaks along the way. If we do it in a more controlled fashion, we're more likely to get the system filled with water without any significant problems. And Brad will talk to you a little bit more about the specifics and the details of that as we continue to go. The result of that is that some people are starting to see water now. Most people, we would expect, we hope, will have water by this evening. Once the water is through the system, we can then increase the pressure to the system, and people will be up and have that pressure. In the meantime, we are also, as we indicated, going to convert the 12-inch bypass on the gravity line to an 18-inch bypass on the gravity line, which will take the folks who currently have water but not great pressure. They will all get much better pressure, and particularly for St. Mary's Hospital, they will now be able to get sufficient water out of the water system, and they will no longer have to rely on the tanker truck and the pumpers, and so they'll be able to get water throughout the entire facility once we do that, and that should happen without any interruption of service at this point. And before I just call Brad up to give you some of the more technical details on how this is going, I know we had talked about a capital plan that we were looking at to identify or to replace or put in 10 valves that we've found at critical locations. One of the reasons that we're going through this today, and we went through the same problem back in the fall, is because within the system, when there's a leak, we have not been able to isolate it as sufficiently as we should be able to. A lot of these valves aren't working or aren't located in quite the right place. Had we had a valve located anywhere in the area where we put the new valve in on Sunday, this would not have been a problem. We would not have shut down the system to isolate where the leak was. So rather than waiting for the capital project in the next fiscal year, as soon as we get this all stabilized here, I'm going to sit down together with the water department folks and our financial folks, and we are going to make sure that we have identified the 10 key points and that those are the key points. If there's more, we'll look at those as well. But make sure we've identified the key points that need these valves, and then we are going to undertake a program much earlier so that we can get going on that. If we can get these valves installed, I believe that we will have less of an issue like we've had in the last two big breaks where we have to shut down the entire system and then bring the system back. Quite frankly, we've never faced a situation of re-energizing a system the way we're doing it right now. That's why we're trying to be very cautious. We want to make sure that we don't cause any unintended consequences. So, it's a little bit slower than I had hoped yesterday when I spoke to you, but I think it's the right way to go, and we should have everyone able to flush their toilets by this evening, or most people able to flush their toilets by this evening. So with that, I'm going to just ask Brad to come up and kind of talk to you a little bit about the technical pieces of all of this as we move forward. By the way, this is on Frost Road, so this is what an area.
Just a few minutes ago.
Just a few minutes ago. So as you can see, the water is moving its way up, and the water's coming out. And I don't know if the picture's accurate, but it looks relatively clear at this point. So
it's water. Clear, not clear. Thanks for coming. Like the mayor said, we went live last night. We started feeding the city with two 10-inch mains in an effort to control the pace and the pressure that we're putting into the system. Essentially, the entire system vacated down to the lowest point. Zero water in it, with the exception of what might have been in a couple tanks feeding a couple neighborhoods. We had nothing. So when you give that system time to kind of take a break and relax, you can't just slam it back full. Everything will blow apart, especially some of the age and some of the brittleness of the pipe. It may be an abundance of caution, but I believe it's the correct amount of caution to put towards it. We're going to continue to fill until the furthest reaches of our system are full of water. Then we're going to introduce more pressure into the system later on. I believe that's the correct way. Once the tanks begin to fill, we'll be able to add more pressure back into the system, and without taking the risk of putting water hammer into our pipes and into our valves and into the appurtenance that exists. The last thing we want to do now that we've mitigated the big problem is create another big problem that we have to say, oh, well, now we got to shut down because these 3 12-inch mains broke over here, or this, it's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to do it today, or any day, really. So that's the approach we're going to take. As the mayor said, we are upgrading the bypass line to the low service. That will happen today, so the people that exist on low service, which is along Naugatuck River, downtown, out towards Hamilton Park, those people will see full pressure today. And that includes St. Mary's, which is a good thing to take them off of the pumper trucks. Hopefully, best case scenario, we are taking samples tomorrow morning, having them to the lab early tomorrow afternoon, which would allow us to get results 24 hours after that. Provided everything is clear, at that point, the 24 or 30 back samples that we are going to send away to the lab, I haven't made a final decision yet, but I'm going to take representative samples from all 3 services, low service, and both east side and west side of the city. And once those come back and clear, then we should be good to go. I'm going to let the mayor finish, and if anybody has technical questions for me afterwards, then we can handle that then.
So just two other things, because the testing won't be completed until Thursday, the water distribution is going to continue tomorrow and Thursday so people can get potable water. We're going to continue to do that. As we're trying to get the schools ramped back up, although I will say schools will also be closed tomorrow since we're not going to have water for food preparation. It becomes an issue. Most of our students get breakfast and lunch, so we're going to end up having to close the schools tomorrow. We'll see where we are by Thursday. But partially because we're trying to get the schools ramped up, and also just as the week goes on and people are back to work, the volunteers are a little bit harder. We're going to have the water distribution just at the stadium, and we're going to today they're at both locations, but starting tomorrow the water distribution will just be at the stadium. And they've told me that so far today the demand is lower than it had been in the last couple of days as well. So with that, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I do. What would you recommend for homeowners? Because I imagine it's been very cold. We've gone through these sort of winter storms where the heat goes out and then people's heat comes back on, and then all of a sudden, they've got problems at home.
At this point, the only people that should have lost heat during this are people with old school steam boilers. More modern furnaces are closed loop furnaces. They don't involve make-up water from the public water system or another water supply. So people, I would say 99% of people still should have heat. Where you find the steam boilers are places like schools, big businesses, things of that nature. So if you do have a steam boiler in your home, or a boiler that requires make-up water from the city, you're obviously going to have to make other plans for your home. And your home doesn't have water in it now, and if it does, you need to drain it out and make sure that it doesn't freeze, and make other plans for yourself.
But everybody else should be all right, just like you said. I think your advice was to run the taps.
Open the tub to allow the air to get out of the system so the water can flow into your house.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to reiterate that if you have your tub open, I'm not asking you to leave your tub running. I'm asking you to bleed the air out of your line, and when you start getting water out of your faucet, please turn your tub off. If everybody has their tub on, it's making our job increasingly difficult to fill the system. It's a lot of water going down to everybody. 30,000 people or 40,000 people put their tub on. It makes it more difficult to fill the system. So I'm asking you to bleed the air out of your lines for the safety of your own home plumbing. And once that air is gone and you're getting a solid stream of water, please turn your tub off.
And there hasn't been an issue with fire protection or anything like that over there?
No,
There was a scrapyard fire.
Right. So Friday night, when we understood that we were losing water throughout the city, The first people we called in were the fire department to figure out how we were going to deal with that. The first thing they did was come up with a plan that would utilize tanker water, and they were able to access a couple of tankers, I think 3 from neighboring communities that have been here on standby. Plus, they had activated mutual assistance and let the surrounding towns know that we might need additional tankers, and they had plans for how to, refill those tankers as they used them. The only fire that we've had so far of sort of any significance was the junkyard fire, the metal yard fire at Albert Brothers, and the system that they had devised worked well. They were able to get that fire out. So,
Now, can perhaps both of you talk a little bit about the sort of capital investments that have been made in Waterbury's water system, and also the 10 valve project that you were talking about? I mean, I know there was like $30 million in the last, I think, capital plan or something like that.
Sure, I'm happy to talk about it. So the state runs a state revolving fund program, which allows municipalities to bond out money and take out loans at a very low interest rate, paid back over a few decades. We took advantage of some of those loans and bonded out close to $30 million, I think right at $30 million, for several different major capital upgrades that we needed. One of which was an $11 million upgrade at our water treatment plant. Those high service pumps and mixers that have been pumping water to the city of Waterbury have been doing so continuously since 1980. So those pumps don't owe us a dime. They've worked flawlessly for that long, but it is time that they had to be upgraded and brought into this century, to be perfectly honest. We also, in that addition, added VFD, which stands for variable frequency drive. Before, our pumps at the treatment plant were like a light switch. They were on or off. And then every time you turned one on, it cost you $700, because that was the electricity cost to turn it on. So if you turn pumps on and off 2 or 3 times a day, the energy bill was staggering. What the VFD allows us to not turn pumps on and off, it allows us to turn them up and down. Based on our need and based on what the city needs, we can turn pumps up and down instead of on and off. And that it will be a tremendous savings to the city in the long run on electricity and efficiency coming out of the treatment plant. From there, we prioritized some of the more important infrastructure needs that we had in the city, one of which was the 42-inch main coming down the Thomason Avenue. It's broken several times throughout the years, and each time it does, it is a lot of money and is a lot of headache, as you can see right now. This is the worst one we've had, but it's never an easy fix. It's always a major thing. That pipe is 42 inches and it's 200 pounds of pressure. And so when it does decide that it's going to break, it does not break a little bit. It breaks a lot of it, and it throws rocks and it damages homes and cars. And we decided that in the more heavily populated area of Thomason Avenue, down near the park and towards getting closer to Chase Avenue, we relined that with a 38-inch HDPE pipe with a much higher pressure rating and a much higher reliability factor and a much longer lifespan. That project has ended up costing us, it was bonded out for, I believe, about $12.7 million. That project is completed. We had planned on wrapping the project up this week with pressure testing it and disinfecting it. And obviously we ran into this major main break, so I'm not going to fight 2 battles on the same front. So I put that on the back burner while we fix the main break. Then I'll complete that and put it back in service. Definitely within the next couple weeks, that will be completed. The next major project that we did was new construction of a North Main pump station. North Main pump station, I believe, was built during the Revolutionary War. That's a joke. I don't know when it was built, but it was really old. It was really old.
Part of the airport program.
It was very outdated. It was an immediate need for the city, so we constructed and built an entire new pump station at the base of Reagan School on North Main Street. New pumps, new VFDs, new piping, new everything. That water is being pumped to another major capital improvement, which is the new Blackman storage tank on top of the hill. So that is our $30 million. In and out of this, you have to factor in the design and engineering costs on all of those things. But those four things are four major capital upgrades that we have made in the last 2 years, preemptively trying to get ahead of problems that we know are coming. As far as the valve replacement program that I had anticipated on putting out with the new fiscal budget in July, I've been told that by the mayor that we're moving that up. There are several key transmission mains, valves, and appurtenances in our system that either need to be replaced. I'm not even going to say repaired. They need to be replaced. It's much easier to do these things in a controlled environment, planned. You have all your mitigation plans in place. You know people are going to have water. You're not going to go without water, versus fighting it when it breaks and realizing that, now I got to make, now people are without water because it didn't work. The valves didn't work. The thing about valves in the ground is at some point they're 50 years old or they're 70 years old and nobody wants to touch them anymore. Well, not touching them anymore just adds to the problem because everybody's scared if you touch it, you're going to break it. Well, that just adds to the problem. So now when you need to touch it, now nobody's really touched it. So it's, they all got to come out of the ground. And these are valves that would allow us to isolate the west end from the other side of the city. It would allow us to isolate low service. It would allow, just valves that we have to have in our system that allow us. It would allow us to continue to feed the city through either the first transmission main or the second transmission main without interruption. So, for instance, if we would have had the valves in place, like the mayor said, that we put in yesterday, and the main broke, we could have just turned the valve and kept going with the 30. Never had to worry about it. We just would have kept pumping water. No one would have lost water at all, and it would have been fine. We didn't have, that wasn't the case of a valve not working. That was the case of the valve wasn't there. But the one that should have been there, those aren't working, and they need to be replaced. So that's going to be a significant capital project, and we're going to try and get it done this year.
You have an idea of the price?
I don't have an idea of a price, but I do know that your average 36-inch butterfly valve that you would put in the system raw before any construction is probably about 150 grand, 180,000. So that's before you lay hands on it. So it's not a cheap adventure, and I think that's why a lot of people. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-awareness to say, okay, hey, I need a couple $1 million. This has to happen, and not everybody wants to be the one to say that they need that. And I think it's admirable that we're willing to say, okay, we have to have it. We can't keep continuing to go down the road that we're doing here.
And how long would a project like that take? I mean, that sounds kind of like a massive undertaking.
It is. There's no two ways about it, but it has to happen. And it's a point that I've made, and the mayor has made kind of all along. Even when you have the funds available, and even when you have the plan to do it, you just can't do it. You have to plan for people having water. You have to plan, for people being able to drive down the road. A lot of these valves are right in the middle of a road. So how do you it's not just hey, we're going to replace the valve. There are a lot of kind of impressing factors on when you decide and how you decide to do these projects. And yeah, it will take a long time, but there's no two ways about it. But you don't finish it if you don't start it. So
I see Superintendent Schwartz is here. Could you give us an update on what's happening with the school system? The mayor is saying so many of the students are relying on breakfast and meals here. So.
Sure. So obviously, in regards to what the mayor said, and of course Superintendent Malay, the reality is we want to be cautious as well. So we're opening up the lines to be cautious with the water coming into the city. We're being cautious with students coming back to school. Obviously without working plumbing, we can't have students back and have it be hygienic. And so as schools come online, we'll make sure that all the toilets work, and we're working with our food services department to find ways to make sure that we can feed students safely. Even if we're possibly waiting for a result of a test, there's some ways for us to be able to do that. We will be ready for that when that time comes, but for right now, we're being cautious, we're being safe. We have 16 schools without water at this moment still, fully with full water. Obviously the lines are filling. We anticipate the schools to have water by tonight, but we can't open school up on a risk and on a guest, and so we just want to be cautious. We want to make sure that we can feed students safely, we can make sure we can sanitize safely, and that it's hygienic for students to come back.
And when does your holiday break begin?
December 23rd is the last day students come into school.
So what, they maybe come in Friday or Monday?
Every day we're gonna work on it every day, and they're gonna get in as early as we can get them in.
Okay, and has it been like remote learning? I mean, how's, or have you just basically canceled school and we're gonna make them up at the end of the year?
It's like a snow day. We're gonna have to cancel. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to do virtual learning. That was only during the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
If that was an option, maybe we could have taken advantage of that. But we will make up all the days at the end of the school year.
Superintendent Schwartz, is this 5, use air quotes around snow days, caused by water main breaks this year?
So this will be, tomorrow will be the 4th.
So, sorry, Wednesday will be the 4th one then? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. What is the total number of schools? How does this big picture, how does this impact the amount of school days you guys obviously have? We
Sure.
haven't really even gotten to the, meat of winter yet.
So, yes, no, we have not gotten to the meat of winter yet, but in the state of Connecticut, you're required to go to school 180 school days. In Waterbury Public Schools, for this calendar school year, we actually have 181 scheduled, so we have some flexibility there. We have to go 180 days, and we have to do that by June 30th, and so depending on how long this goes and how the winter shakes out, we have some opportunity there to maybe reduce and look at other days in the calendar that we could make up for students.
As someone who's obviously, overseeing all this, how does that make you feel just knowing that, again, we haven't actually, called off school yet for, Mother Nature, because of these unforeseen circumstances?
Yeah.
As someone who has to obviously, manipulate the calendar that way, how are you dealing with this?
Well, we'll figure it out. I mean, if teachers are flexible, we adjust on the fly, and so this is what nature has brought us this year. This is what you can't. You can't plan for natural disasters and these types of emergencies, but the reality is that we've heard nothing but amazing things from our teachers and our parents. They understand this is a situation that none of us called for, and we'll just adjust as necessary.
Approximately how many students are receiving free and discounted meals?
100% of our students receive it.
That's right.
Yeah, but we serve about 20,000 meals a day.
About 20 meals? Okay.
Is it possible we could ask a few questions for the health department?
Absolutely, not for me.
You're all hiding back there.
I was hoping you wouldn't
She was
notice
up
me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We touched on this a little bit yesterday, talked about restaurants. Are you guys out in the, community doing any work today, talking to restaurants and doing any compliance checks, things like that?
We are.
Could you tell me a little bit what that looks like?
Sure. We have a team of sanitarians, food inspectors who go out, and they've been out every day since this emergency began, communicating with restaurants that are remaining open just to do education. We feel like it's more collaborative to approach this from an education standpoint, because a lot of people think if I have bottles of water, I can make do. FDA Food Code has a different view on that, and so we're just trying to be as understanding and collaborative as possible, but, in the end, if we have to use enforcement, we will.
Obviously, we talked about just some of the consequences, obviously, at play for some of these restaurants. So you guys are obviously, looking at it of let's get people into compliance. What are some of the conversations you're having? What are the things you're encountering with some of the maybe misunderstandings with some of the restaurants in the city?
I think that there's training that all food service establishment employees go through in order to get licensed. And so it's reminding them of that training, because some of them have been in the business for so long and, may have new employees who aren't as familiar with the FDA Food Code. So we're trying to just reinforce the basics: hand washing, preparation of fruits and vegetables that requires washing with water, all of those things that you can't really get around when you have a boil water notice in effect.
Nobody's been cited, though. There's been no enforcement action, has there?
We've been out talking to them as the
Yeah.
first step of enforcement.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but nobody's been cited for a violation of the health code.
No, I haven't signed any violations to date. We're also operating the emergency operations call center,
and the warming center that's been open for residents who don't have heat. So we've been quite busy.
Mayor, have you had any contact with I see we have a state representative here, about any kind of state assistance with the city, whether it's immediate relief, helping you with any of the bills related to this event, or perhaps looking forward to when the city does the valve project?
Well, we haven't had any concrete conversations about the funding yet. We will be having conversations with the state and also with our congressional delegation on the federal level. I spoke with Congresswoman Hayes this morning to start looking at whether there may be some federal dollars available as well. So we will take a look at what's out there. At this point, we've been concentrating mostly on trying to get the materials, get the water that we could put out there to make sure that people have it. Because one way or the other, we need to supply those things, and then we can figure out that how we're gonna deal with that and whether or not there's assistance.
Do you have any cost estimates of how much this whole situation is costing the city?
No, I can tell you, with the water, for instance, we've had a lot of water has been donated, but we did purchase some to supplement what was there. We're gonna need to purchase more to get through the next 2 days. But yesterday, we had those 10 truckloads of water that were delivered. Those cost us well over $100,000. So, and we're probably looking at another bill for the next, tomorrow's water distribution as well. And I'm not sure where we are. I know we own the valve that we put in, but there's the overtime. And then we haven't gotten into the hole that caused all of this problem with the pipe. And that's got to be sort of excavated to understand what's in there and see where that goes. I think the last one was, and we're still working out some of that issues, but somewhere around $800,000. This will probably be somewhat more than that.
And I'm sorry, I looked at the water quality report from '24.
Yep.
Meeting all federal and state standards.
Yep.
That's still the situation. Waterbury has
Absolutely.
some very good
We have
water.
no water quality violations whatsoever in the system right now.
Just confirming, water bottle distribution the next couple of days, 9 to 5 at Municipal
No.
Stadium?
9 to 12.
It'll be
Just
till
at
exhaustion.
municipal. Oh,
What's that?
It'll be till exhaustion, till we exhaust
Both
all our
days.
supplies. What's that?
Both days?
We're gonna play it by ear, with
Just to-
depending on
Gotcha.
testing and everything.
So there's
like
no plans to bring in new water with whatever is currently on
that.
hand?
We've been bringing in water on a daily basis.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so we order for,
Whatever you have at the start of the day, you
Yeah.
go until it's out?
yeah.
Okay.
But it
And
would.
It's incredibly hard to source, believe it or not,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
amount of water at one time in one spot.
Gotcha.
uh,
Recommendation for people to come early.
Yeah, tomorrow and Thursday, if we do, and I think we will be doing it Thursday because we won't get the results till later, we'll just be at the stadium. Today, it's both the stadium and Crosby High School, both areas are open.
Friday, we playing by ear, is that it?
If we get the testing done tomorrow, I expect that we're gonna do the testing, once the water has settled, we should get a good result on Thursday, which means we wouldn't need to do water distribution Friday. If we get a failure, on Thursday, then we would continue to do it Friday. But at this point, we don't anticipate that, but we'll make that announcement, on Thursday if we need to.
I think
Anything
the
else?
last question I have, yesterday you just sort of highlighted, what an ideal path forward is without any major hiccups. I know you mentioned a little bit this morning that, we're introducing the water a little
Yep.
slower than you expected.
Yep.
Are we still more or less on that
Yes.
ideal path?
Yes, it's working the way we anticipated. Putting that valve in has allowed us to get the water to flow. The 18-inch should go through today. I don't foresee any real issues with that because it's already in place, running as a bypass. The water is going. The only thing that is taking a little bit longer, the folks who were introducing it have made a decision that we should not rush to get that done, and I agree with that. I think that's the right choice. It's frustrating because I would prefer to stand here today and tell you that everyone in Waterbury has water right now. But by this evening, we expect that most people will. But we're going to do it in a way, because the worst thing that could happen is for us to introduce the water too quickly and create another problem that's going to drag out over days. We're coming into Christmas next week, so we want to get this done right today, and I think a couple more hours, the process is worth it. Anything else? All right, thank you all.
Thank you very much.